What's up YouTube fam? This is Wesley, UX designer, and welcome back to the channel. So if you follow this channel and if you've seen some of my recent videos, you'll know that I recently got a full-time UX design job as a UX contractor. Now in those previous videos, I've shown you guys what that transition has looked like going from contract to full-time through my day in the life videos. But I don't think I really had the chance to share with you guys the story of how I made all that happen. I want to share the story with you guys just to show you guys the upsides of getting a contract position and how I use this type of employment position to my advantage in order to get a full-time position at the same company. And I hope that this provides some level of motivation and inspiration to those who were in the same position as me when I was a contractor. So let's first talk about the details of my contract position. So before getting this contract position, I did have a full-time job at a different company, and I decided it was time for me to make an early exit about the 9th month I was there. So I was looking around for new opportunities, and an employment agency actually reached out to me, letting me know that they had some open positions available, and one of them was the contract position that I ended up getting. The employment agency told me that the contract position would be about 7 months long with the possible chances of a full-time conversion or a contract extension. The contract position was a high pay, since most contract positions, they do get paid a lot higher than a full-time. And on top of that, I would actually receive some health insurance, which is a plus because most of the time with employment agencies or contracts, you usually don't get that. Also with this position, I wouldn't get any 401k or any PTOs. After knowing all this information and getting a brief description about the role, I decided to move forward with the interview process. Now the entire interview process, it was only about 2 weeks long. I had my first initial interview with the UX manager, then my second round interview was with 2 product managers, and then I had one final one with the design manager again. And that was pretty much it. I didn't even have a design challenge, and that wasn't too surprising to me because I knew that interviews for contract positions were pretty quick and they were looking to bring in someone fairly quickly. Obviously in the interview, I did go through a whole bunch of Q&A, them asking me about my current and previous experience as a UX designer. Now, before I accepted this role, I made sure to have a lot of conversations around the full-time conversion and the contract extensions and what the possibilities were, which both the employment agency and my UX manager, they both told me that they were possible, but they weren't guaranteed. So going into this position, I told myself the ultimate goal would be for me to land a full-time position at the same company once the contract position ended. And then the worst case scenario is that my contract position would end and then I would have to go back out and look for another job. Now, in order to accomplish this ultimate goal of getting a full-time conversion and getting that full-time job, I decided I needed a really good plan. So I'll break this plan into 2 parts. So for the first part, my goal was to understand the company confidently front and back. So as soon as my contract position began at this company, I wrote down a list of things that I really wanted to understand and be knowledgeable in. And some of those things were: what does the company's business look like and how do they make money nationally, internationally? What type of products do they sell and who are the consumers/users? Who are the company's competitors and in what ways can we do better and be on top? How does one of the stores operate? Are there different types of stores? What technology and products are utilized by the company? Now, a lot of these things revolve not only around UX design, but it's also the business aspect of things as well. As a UX designer, I can't stress enough how important it is for you to understand the business side of the product that you're working on and the company you're working for. If you don't know this by now, UX design, it's not really all about creativity and design. You can't forget about the business, product strategy, product feasibility, stakeholders and business partners, which are all crucial aspects to understand as a UX designer working in tech. It doesn't help to only have UX designers at a company. You have to understand that it does take a team of business, design, software engineering, and product management to successfully launch a product and maintain it. Now, in order to understand all these different things that I listed out and get answers to my questions, you gotta do your due diligence and seek that knowledge. And what I did, I basically networked my butt off across the entire company and tech space. And that means networking with people outside of your own team and those who you work with on a daily basis. Now, the first group of people that I started to reach out to were the UX designers at the company. As I started to schedule these one-on-ones with the design team, I did have a list of things that I wanted to learn, and some of these things were: how long has UX design been prominent at this company and in the tech space? What's the design culture like? What are some of the challenges of being a UX designer at this company? And what team structures are designers working under? What is the career trajectory of a UX designer at this company? I scheduled a good amount of one-on-ones with different UX designers and managers across different product teams to understand the type of products that they're working on and to see how UX designers work at this company and on product teams. One crucial learning point for me was scheduling one-on-one with UX researchers. Now, I've never been at a company where they had separate UX researchers as a position, so I made sure to talk to them and learn how they work with UX designers and the product space in general. Now, for the next group of people that I started to network with, those were people who worked on product teams, such as product managers and engineers. Some of the things I wanted to learn from them were, how does UX design fit within the product team structure? Is the UX design process utilized? How do designers work with the PM? How do they work with engineers? Do teams work in a balanced product team structure, or do they work in a more siloed waterfall approach? I think it's very important to understand how you'll be working on a product team and what that structure looks like. If it's something new for you, then you'll need to know what you'll be walking into, and that way you can prepare yourself early on. Or maybe you find that the product team structure is inefficient and not suitable for you, so then you can make the decision if this is the best fit for you or not. Also, another important thing for me is knowing if UX design has a seat at the table within the tech space. Now, if UX design isn't respected or understood at the company, you may work in a tech environment where people don't really understand how to utilize UX designers within the product teams and on the products that you're working on. And you may be expected to do things maybe even outside of your actual roles and responsibilities because they don't even know it. And you may not be utilized to your full potential. Now, all this information helped me to determine if this company could be a right fit for me long-term as a full-time employee. So with about 3 months left of the contract position, I decided I needed to really prepare myself for the future, whether that means I look for a full-time conversion, contract extension, or have to go back out into the job market. Now, the first thing that I did was have a very serious conversation with my UX manager and even with the employment agency. We had another series of conversations around my future, whether there was a possibility of me getting a contract extension or a full-time conversion. Through the continual conversation, it looked like neither of those options were possible, sadly. But they did let me know that if there was an open full-time position available on a different team, I could essentially apply for it. And thankfully, there was one right around that 3-month mark. Now, before I decided to apply for it, I decided to first reach out to the UX manager who was overseeing that open position. I scheduled a one-on-one to introduce myself and then ask more information about the open role. That helped me to get an understanding of what they were looking for in a UX designer, what type of position it would be, and what type of product I would be working on as well. Once I decided that it was going to be a good fit for me, I basically expressed my interest in the role to the manager. I was told to apply for the open position and that they would be on the lookout for my application. Now, this is just an assumption, but because I was already working at the company as a contractor and I had some credibility as a UX designer already working on some projects, I probably got pushed up the list amongst the other applicants. Next thing I knew, I had a researcher reach out to me in order to schedule out my entire interview process. Now, I had to go through the interview process again, but for a full-time role on a different team. So the interview first started out with the UX manager, going through my experience, what I've done previously at other companies, and what I did during my contract position. I did do a case study walkthrough of one of the projects that I've worked on at a different company. And again, we talked a little bit about the current projects that I worked on as a contractor. Next interview was with a senior UX designer and a product manager. They worked on the same team and they would be the people that I would work with. A lot of the questions that they asked were around my experience working on a product team. And lastly, I had one more interview with the UX manager again to kind of ask final questions and get some last final feedback. Now, as I went through this entire interview process, I did feel like I was at an advantage for the following reasons. First, I had time to understand the company inside and out as a contractor, as I networked across the company, talking to many different people. Some of the people who interviewed me, specifically the UX manager, I already talked to that person before, so they already knew who I was and what to expect. And lastly, I've worked in the same type of industry, which is e-commerce and retail. The only difference was that I never really worked in the food and beverage industry, so that was the small little learning curve. Again, super helpful going into this interview process with so much knowledge, insights, and experience already. So the entire interview process took about 4 weeks long until the recruiter finally reached out to me to let me know that I got the full-time job. They sent over the offer letter listing out the salary, benefits, and the expectations as a full-time employee. Another interesting fact is that this particular role that I got, it was originally supposed to be a hybrid position, but they thankfully made an exception for me and turned it into a full remote so that way I could stay in LA. And that's how I landed a full-time UX design job as a UX contractor. I hope this video was informative for you guys. I definitely wanted to shine a light on contract positions as a UX designer, showing you guys the potentials of where this type of job can take you, how you can take advantage of it. and how to land a full-time job at the same company. Let me know if you guys had your own experience with contract roles. Was your experience great? Was it bad? Were you able to get a full-time conversion, contract extension? What happened? Let us know in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.